You're listening to The Martin Houston Show on Tide 100.9 in Tuscaloosa.
From the Fox Sports Studios in Los Angeles, here's Eddie Garcia.
In top 25 college football, Boston College wins at number 10 Florida State 28-13 behind quarterback Thomas Castellanos' 3 touchdowns, 2 passing and 1 rushing. BC wins its first game under new head coach Bill O'Brien for the Seminoles. They now have started the season 0-2. In baseball games of note, the Yankees beat the Rangers 8-4. New York still holds a half-game lead on Baltimore for first in the AL East as the Orioles handed the White Sox their 108th loss on the season with a 13-3 win. Guardians down the Royals 4-2. Cleveland remains 3.5 games up on Minnesota. Twins beat the Rays 5-4, and now have a 4.5 game lead on Kansas City for the top spot in the AL Central. Dodgers defeat the Diamondbacks 11-6. LA's lead atop the NL West is at 5 games on San Diego and now 6 games on Arizona. Brewers beat the Cardinals 9-3. Milwaukee leads the NL Central. AL West leading Astros lose to the Reds 5-3. Mets knock off the Red Sox 4-1.
Alabama 1st and 10 on the 12. Again, Houston. He's got a hole. He's over. Alabama touchdown.
I'm just wondering if your listeners know how good a football player you were. I can still see you playing that fullback, knocking those players out of the way. And I believe I could have run behind you.
Martin, I can remember when we came to summer and you were playing fullback up there, and I saw you in the weight room and watched you work out in the weight room. If you could pick up, you were strong enough to pick up the whole weight room. I wanted to pick it, and our running back coach didn't take the pass. Biggest mistake we ever made.
The Martin Houston Show with national championship winning fullback Martin Houston, giving you 1 hour of intense, hard-hitting analysis from an insider's perspective. It's time for the Martin Houston Show on your home for Alabama sports, Tide 100.9, and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Welcome to the Martin Houston Show with Martin and Xavier as we get ready to kick off this Tuesday edition of the Martin Houston Show powered by Max Sports. I am Xavier Houston. I am here with Martin Houston as we continue the conversation from the weekend as we talk about Alabama's performance this past week as we get ready to talk to DC of DC Capstone Report and get his takes over the weekend. We'll also cover some more of the good, the bad, and the ugly with him, takeaways, what's next, and maybe continue a little conversation around the SEC and the nation. But remember, we're brought to you by Box Eye Care. Box Eye Care. Go check out their new location on Oxford Baxter Drive. Kicking it over to you.
All right. Welcome into the program. We're excited to have you in with us on this Tuesday morning. Many of you may have slept in yesterday, and those of you who join us via the radio airwaves, we missed you. We did broadcast on the Martin Houston Facebook page on our different social media outlets. Had a great conversation. So if you missed that and want to catch up on that content, just go to Martin Houston, the Martin Houston Show on Facebook, and we will catch you up. But we do plan to bring DC Capstone Report in. And this is the Martin Houston Show with Martin and Xavier, powered by Box Eye Care. And Box Eye Care can be found at 5003 Oscar Baxter Drive, boxeyecare.com. 205-342-0660, Dr. Daniel Box, OD. Their staff will be there to serve you. Great appointments, great use of technology, and most importantly, in their new location, they have that new in-house lab where you can get all your eye care needs taken care of and get great selection on frames, which equals great service and competitive prices. In most cases, you get out of there with that new look in 1 hour or less. That's Box Eye Care, powering the Martin Houston Show. Remember that this is a day that the Lord has made, so let's rejoice and be glad in it. Take some time today to notice someone, love someone, serve someone, be the difference you want to see in the world today. All right, X, let's get things rolling. We have DC on with us. Let's keep the conversation rolling.
Good morning, DC. How you doing? All right.
We're getting back on. Give us 1 second.
Okay. Well, we've got Pat on the line. Pat's joining us on the Empowerment Strategy Solutions Hotline. How you doing this morning, Pat?
I'm doing fine, X. Who scored the first touchdown?
Hey, Pat.
I think it was my quarterback. Hey, and did I not tell you Ryan was going to have 125? He had 139.
Yeah, you were thinking he would get that up.
Pat, come on, you should have been listening yesterday.
Yeah, you
listening yesterday, Pat.
I hunted y'all yesterday, and I couldn't find you.
Pat.
Yeah.
Just so that people listening, we're not hard to find in social media. It's just Martin Houston, the Martin Houston Show, Alabama Sports on the Martin Houston Show. All of those find us. So we're not hard to find. You just need some.
I went on at 6 o'clock, punching it in, and I guess I missed it somehow or another.
We're on Twitter. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube.
I went on Martin Houston 3.5, and I couldn't find you.
I promise you, we were there.
Okay, Martin Houston 3.5 get you.
The Martin Houston Show, Alabama Sports on the Martin Houston Show, all of those.
Okay, but Martin Houston 3.5, that doesn't get you.
That's one of them.
I thought it was under your number. Okay,
it is. That is one of them.
I got you. Hey, well, look. Hey, what about my prognostication? That was pretty good, though, wasn't it?
Pat, I know you're thinking 125. You weren't thinking 2 catches.
Hey, I was look. I've been watching. I tell you that I watched him in the Under Armour game, and he played against the very best competition that there was available, and he made him look silly. He's Superman.
I watched it too, Pat, but I don't want you to think that. Yeah, I saw it too. I saw him at practice, Pat. I saw him up close and personal, not against high school kids. I saw him against college kids.
Hey,
but 2 catches, Pat. Hold on, Pat. 2 catches for 139 yards is not normal. So
he's Superman. Hey, you put him under the lights. He's Superman. I'm telling y'all just don't understand.
All right.
Hey, look, he's on his way though.
Pat, I just want you to be honest with us. You thought it would be on more than 2 catches.
And I thought it'd be on 3 or 4. I'll be honest about it. Yeah, but hey, I'm well on my way to 1359. Yeah,
you always a good start. I'll give you that.
Hey guys, hey this week this is not going to be the same outcome that South Florida was last year. Hey, we're going to smoke these boys, and and we win by more than 40. And we're going to reach our goal of 48 points in this ball game for sure. Hey, I got confidence in my new coach. Hey, but this is going to be more competition this week than it was last week. Do y'all not agree?
You know what, Pat? I'm gonna go ahead and you know what? You got me. I believe in you this week.
All right.
I believe in you this week.
We'll see. But hey, look. Plus, I heard that the offensive line last year. Now, hey, I would have fired all of them if that was true. I heard the offensive line didn't want to block for the rest of the quarterbacks. And all I know is that there was some
that's hogwash. We're gonna shut that conversation down on the Martin Houston show this week. Hogwash, because no player goes out there and loses their job because they want the other guy. Now there may be some frustration. They may not be as engaged because different players lose them, but there was no conspiracy that we're going to let these guys suffer. Because tell me, DC, let's bring DC. What was the difference in the way the offensive line looked against South Florida, Texas, and everybody else? What was the difference? I want all the people who have that idiotic thought that the offensive line sabotaged the quarterbacks last year. Tell me the difference in the number of sacks that Jalen Milroe had when he played all year versus what happened in South Florida. Tell me where the offensive line was different or better or worse.
I think it was about the same kind of play all around. I don't think there was any concerted effort to not block. I'm sure the players were a little disappointed or down. It may have affected the way they played, but it had nothing to do with
that defensive end for South Florida was a bad man. He was in that quarterback space.
The defense from every team was a bad man against us last year. the most athletic quarterback that Alabama has probably ever had got sacked 40-something times last year. 49 times last year.
Last year, Alabama got sacked 49.
And I rest my case. I would have stopped that with a good fullback, Martin Houston.
And better play calling. Thanks, Pat. We got a couple other calls we need to get to.
Y'all have a blessed day. Bye-bye.
All right, thanks, Pat. Pat nailing the Ryan Williams thing. We didn't get his Pat. I'm sure he'll call back to get the prediction for the week for South Florida. We take those all week long. Let's go ahead, instead of rushing the callers, let's go ahead and get the break here, and we'll be back on the other side. We have DC Capstone Report in with us. We'll get his thoughts on the good, the bad, I say the ugly or the mistakes, Bama takeaways from the game, what's next around the SEC, / the nation, and more. We'll have all those conversations. We also have the Empowerment Strategies and Solutions Hotline open for business, 205-342-9904. And don't forget to check out North River Timber Company, North River Timber CO at gmail.com or 205-242-5127. Why should you call that number? If you have land and you need timber harvesting appraisals and land management, Courtney White and Chase Pearson, they are there to help you. Courtney White says if you have land, it's like having money in the bank. Maximize.
Because Lowe's knows savings. Lowe's knows home improvement. More terms and restrictions apply. See Lowe's.com/rebates for details. Valid through 9/4.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
The sky partially sunny today. The chance of a few scattered showers and thunderstorms this afternoon and tonight. The high today 89. Tonight's low 69. Tomorrow a mix of sun and clouds. The chance of a shower or storm in a few spots. The high 85. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9.
Interact with the Martin Houston Show by calling us at 205-342-9904 or tuning into the Martin Houston Show on Facebook.
Welcome back into the Martin Houston Show. Martin and Xavier, powered by Box Eye Care. Hey, don't forget to get your officially licensed branded Alabama swag. You can get the Legacy Collection. You can get the new caps. You can get jerseys and a whole lot more. Go to athletesthread.com/collections/Martin-Houston. That is the Legacy Collection. If you tune in live, you can always just click the QR code if you tune into the live stream. And here's a little audio that we had from, from one of the coaches, defensive coaches yesterday. It's so cool to get to hear from these guys. And so here's Coach Womack talking about something that we want to get your thoughts on, DC. There's a difference between substitution and rotation.
Yeah, I think there's different levels of substitution as the game went on. Right, we felt like as we moved into the second half, the game was in hand, and so you certainly want to get some younger players involved in the game during that time. I think players that showed through fall camp that they could be trusted, that they were what we would call above the line to be able to go in during meaningful snaps in the game. There were players that we knew, younger guys, right, that may make mistakes, but they need to be able to work through those mistakes. And so I think as a staff, it's really important early that you push yourself to be able to get players in games. Because if you don't, right, they can't learn and grow from those experiences as the season goes on, and we're going to need those younger players to continue to elevate their game as the season goes on, and they can only do that if they get some reps. So certainly we're going to try to get people in the game, but we're never going to put a player in that has not shown that he is above the line, when you're taking meaningful snaps.
Coach, that's Coach Womack. As we talked yesterday about rotation versus guys getting on the field. We talked about how Coach DeBoer said that this is just in the second half, it was getting young guys in to get some experience versus the rotation in the first half. And Coach Womack just built on that through that statement. DC, what were your thoughts when you look at how Alabama rotated guys throughout the first half of the game yesterday and the amount of young guys that we got to see on the field?
I was impressed by it. I think it just goes the testament to their ability during fall camp to, as he called it, bring themselves above the line. But what I think, and that's his terminology, but I think what he's talking about there is there's a set of players who can start. There's only so many slots that can start, but he has so much confidence in those players, he considers them starters. And at any moment, he rotates them into a position. It's not really a substitution because of a situation or because of a era or because the other player's tired. It's because they all can play, and they all can play at a high level. And at one point, I think you and I discussed this, actually. I looked out there on the field, and there was Xavier Brown, Xavier Mincy, Bray Hubbard was playing in the back, and then you had just so many freshmen that we thought early on in the game they got in, and there was a rotation. So it's good to see them kind of move into those positions of being able to play and play well. They did a really good job. Red Morgan as well did a really good job.
And King Mack, that was that 21-play drive for the majority of it, DC. When you look at that long drive and getting some fourth downs, that was when they had all of them in there at one time. But when it got down to the red zone, they put this what I would call 1A back in. X, take it.
Yeah, and we've got Alan joining us on the hotline. How you doing this morning, Alan?
Good morning. I was just thinking about what Martin said, last year when he said, the offense sputtered at the beginning, but he always said the offense got to catch up to the defense, and that's what we did. That's what we did Saturday, and I like that. But what I wanted to ask was this. I'm watching that. First of all, Dabo better go to the portal, or they may be calling for his head sooner than later down there in Clemson. And my last thing I wanted to say was this: that wide out or tight end that I think Miami has been playing 9 years. This is my okay. He was Martin. Do you not remember him when he was y'all's tight end way back in the day? I think he was there in '92 when y'all was there.
I think he was on the '89 team, Alan. I think he was on Miami's '89 team.
That's what I was thinking. But what nobody's saying is this: what is his major? To be 9 years, is he a doctor yet? What possibly can you take for 9 years and you not graduate yet? That goes.
No. He's graduated. I think he has 2 or 3. I think he has at least 3 degrees. So he's not going to school.
He's got to have at least 3 degrees. He should be a doctor by now, or a surgeon or something. Come on now, 9 years, give it up, boy. You're not going nowhere. I mean, I know your dream done passed you, brother. I feel your pain. I understand what you went through, and I understand it. I really do. But 9 years. I mean, that's 2 presidential terms. And part of another. Come on now. Come on, really?
When he started college, Obama was still in office. Remember that.
Exactly. See, you going back to see, I was going to say Jimmy Carter. See, you give him Obama. Okay. That's fine. But, Martin, look, he would be recruited when Martin was out there. I was just wondering what this guy was doing. But seriously, Dabo is I think they're gonna ask for his head if you don't go to that portal.
Well,
and it's a difference.
Well, DC,
Martin,
what are your thoughts on this? Because me and Dad had a conversation last night. You have Dabo who's refusing to use the portal, and then you look at Mike Norvell down at Florida State, and as much as he used the portal, he's 0-2.
Well, there's a difference now. There's a difference in this. Okay, the difference is this. You can't go in the team. You can't go in the portal and try to build a team. You go in the portal to try to get players that you need to get players that you need on certain positions. Okay, that means if Stacy is not doing you recruit me to be a tight end or a defensive back, whatever you want me to be, I'm not holding mustard. Obviously, you got to go in the portal to get a player. If I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do, but you can't go and build a team. Colorado tried that; they're not doing it, and now Florida State did that. They're not gelling, and it's going to be a problem.
I think the way you use the portal is the question. I think the way you use the portal is the way you build how you do it. But I think we saw something, and I'd love to hear Martin's take on this because I think I know what he would say. But I think we saw something last night in the Florida State situation. You got a situation where a coach goes out and he swings for the fence and he gets a quarterback, and he just doesn't turn out to be the thing that he needs. It's not working. But what do you do? You paid him all the NIL money. You got him to come. He's the man, and he's not performing. What do you do? Do you go to your bench sooner if he's not a portal guy that's your guy? I just feel like the coach there has use the portal in the wrong way, or when you use the portal that way and you miss, it's a glaring mistake.
Yeah, really quick, I'll be brief on this, and thanks for the topic, Alan. First of all, I'm just glad that DeBoer said yes, because Norvell was on our short list according to Byrne. So, but number two is it is how do you use it? I like Dabo's approach, but I think he needs to. And I didn't realize he had 0 starters since 2018 that were transferred. You have to do some of that because here's the reality: you cannot hit on every recruit. That's what a portal can help you. The portal should be, to me, like junior college, DC. That's all it is. The portal should have taken the place of junior college. You still recruit your guys to build your roster and your program, and then you add needs. If you go back, guys like Mark McMillan when I played, guys like Ephraim Thomas when I played, were JUCO guys. Guys like John Copeland were JUCO guys. That's no different than a transfer portal guy in today's game. But you can't do it. These two guys are at the extremes. The difference is nobody's dogging Norvell because he had success last year. So he caught lightning in a bottle last year. Dabo didn't. Okay? If Dabo runs the table, what will people say? I don't know. But they have made such a big deal. And Curtis Moore II says, I think Clemson assistant coaching staff is also the issue. He doesn't have a Venables. He doesn't have I forget the guy's name that went to Virginia, who's the head coach. Same thing. Dabo had greater assistants too. We saw what it did in Tuscaloosa, DC. Go ahead.
No, I mean that's true when you're looking at it, and people really don't understand how important the assistant coaches are at this level and the difference that they make. And you're seeing that as well at Clemson that you saw at Alabama in the past few years.
Let's get to Robert.
Robert, you're in on the hotline. How you doing this morning, sir?
Hey, guys. How long has it been since Miami's been the undisputed best team in Florida, and the gap has been this wide?
1992.
Hey, listen, Robert, if you have an NFL roster and their tight end McCormick, he counts for 5 or 6 players, right? I mean, I don't even know how does the NCAA tell any kid that applies for a single medical red shirt or hardship no when they have given this guy 9 years? Let that sink in. There are guys who have been told no, who had a legit medical issue and applied for another year because they got hurt in their last year, and the NCAA flat out said no. And here's a guy that has 9. Anyway, back to you, Robert. Take your point.
They're gonna need some hard and fast rules on that. With NIL money coming in, the kids are gonna want to stay in a lot more years. So you better figure that part out now, because it's gonna happen a lot. Finley, I saw Finley. I said, wait a minute, is that the guy who for Finley? He gets so victimized. You leave and get victimized by Alabama again. I'm starting to feel sorry for the guy. But I mean, it is what it is. I'm sorry for you, dude. The game. Nobody talked about the game much, which is fine because there's been a lot more stuff going on. No question. But yeah, what's his name? I mean, I did not tell you my man was going to get 139-yard receptions. I said 139, didn't I?
You're out there. You and Pat, I give it to y'all. Y'all both threw it out there.
Yeah, but he looks like, I mean, of course, first game, but man, he's looking good. Like he looks like the next great one. I guess we'll find out in the Georgia game because that's when you got to show up,
you
man.
You don't more than 2 catches, though, right, Robert?
Yeah. Yeah, well, and there's so much that, as like I said, the way he caught it, and the second one was, of course, the most impressive, and that you went across the middle, which means you're not afraid of it, and you broke away from a guy, which is another thing. That was definitely what's impressive. Going across that middle, a lot of young kids don't like to do that. It kind of takes a while. But he did it early on. And then when you do that, you break away. So that second touchdown was definitely the most impressive. Coach, like you guys mentioned about Dabo, I was going to talk about that, but you guys beat that to death. And you're absolutely right about what Dabo's doing in the transfer portal. But overall a great game. I think the Wisconsin game and how we beat them is going to give us a real feel for the team. Well, obviously we'll win, but if we break away from them early and quick and beat them down, this could be an impressive season.
Yeah, I would say this, Robert. We have to get the break here, guys. But Robert, remember how this quarterback dominated us last year? How we had no point for Florida,
USF.
Yeah, I'm interested to see. Finley isn't that type of quarterback, right? This guy is. I want to see what the speed and quickness and aggressiveness of Womack's defense, the swarm defense, does against this type of guy. Because that's been our Achilles, right? So we're going to see a lot more of these guys than we do, the Georgias. So I want to see how we play against this team from a scheme standpoint. That's what I'm excited to see. Not that we won't necessarily beat them, but I want to see how we handle and contain and pressure and all of those things.
No, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I think there'll be a little revenge factor next weekend going on, because they were kind of embarrassed. So I think there'll be a little revenge factor. Spread, 31? A little over 30?
Yeah, 30.5 right now.
I'm looking for them to beat that spread and beat it. I'm looking for another close to shutout. Maybe they won't shut this team out. But I think there's some revenge on their minds. But I think they're going to win. I think they're going to come out and show out. All right, guys.
All right. Thanks, Robert.
All right.
Hey, as we go ahead.
Appreciate you, Robert. As we get ready to hit the second half of this show, we will come back and we'll get DC's good, bad, and the mistakes of week one, and we'll continue this conversation on the other side.
All right. Thanks for all of you guys out there listening. I want to thank Dixie Battery Supply. Dixie Battery Supply. Go check them out at DixieBatterySupply.com. A couple physical locations in Tuscaloosa and Northport. You can find those addresses at DixieBatterySupply.com or call them at 205-758-9190. Hey, they buy junk batteries and they will power up any device that you have, and you don't have to ever feel powerless again. Stock up with batteries from the battery store. That's Dixie Battery Supply.
Come try their juicy burgers and hand-breaded chicken fingers with one-of-a-kind Irish Gold sauce. We will see you at Innisfree Irish Pub, 1925 University Boulevard, downtown.
From the University of Alabama, this is Crimson Tide Today. It's a daily update on Bama sports, and it's brought to you by Everwood, the official treated lumber of Alabama athletics. Everwood, wood treated right. Hello again, everybody. I'm Roger Hoover. On Tuesday's edition of Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR, we'll be joined by Crimson Tide football radio voice Chris Stewart.
They were impressive offensively doing it. I think that is something that Tide fans were excited to see once again, is the explosiveness that we saw many times over the last decade, especially for Alabama offense. You know, the teams had big play capability in Coach Saban's first half of his tenure, but it was more of just wearing you out. And we always talk about imposing their will. Normally you think of that on the defensive side, but Bama's offense did that for much of his tenure. The last few years, it didn't quite look the same. You had the explosiveness, which was great, but you didn't have as much consistency the last 2 to 3 years.
I'll have more in a moment.
Producing championship quality lumber is not an easy process, but at Everwood Preserving, it's our only process. Wood treated right. Everwood offers top-notch pressure-treated wood for decks, outdoor structures, commercial jobs, and more that you can build your reputation on. When it comes to quality, we're on the winning team. Visit your local Everwood dealer today and discover the difference for yourself. Everwood Preserving Incorporated, the official lumber of the Alabama Crimson Tide.
If you missed last night's edition of Crimson Tide Rewind, presented by the Alabama Department of Public Health, catch it on demand on the Alabama Insider podcast, as well as a video replay on the CTSN YouTube page. Crimson Tide Today is brought to you by Everwood. Crimson Tide Today is a production of the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
Keep it locked into Tide 100.9 for more of the Martin Houston Show with Martin Houston and X's and O's Sports, Xavier Houston.
Obviously, he was very explosive, and the thing that I enjoyed, or I was proud of him, was just the communication, between series, what he saw. I thought he saw the game very clearly. We talked about all week with the group, not just Jalen, but the whole team, is improve as the game goes on, and the communication that occurs between series to try to just get better, see how they're going to try to play you, be able to adjust, be able to adapt. And so I was really proud of that. I thought he was calm. He was poised. I thought he was competitive. I thought he showed toughness. It wasn't, a ton of snaps. Obviously there was, some short scoring drives. And so, but I was proud of how he played. And I know he'll tell you there's still room for growth, which is exciting. And this is really the fun part for coaches, is that you go play a game and you see what you need to work on. You think certain areas where you think the guy's got it, and then it shows up in the game, and maybe it's not quite the habit that you want. And so we're excited to get back on the grass tomorrow.
Welcome back into the Martin Houston Show, powered by Box Eye Care. We want to thank the fine folks over at the Pharmacy Midtown who brings us our Free for All Friday. Go check them out at Pharmacy Midtown. That's the pharmacy at Midtown. Want to thank them fine folks for being a part of the program. Welcome back in.
All right. As we get ready to kick off this second half, DC, we want to hit what you thought the good, the bad, the ugly of the weekend was from Alabama's dominant 63-0 win over Western Kentucky to start off the DeBoer era.
Well, I think the good was that Alabama played like we thought they would. They came out what we expected, explosive offense and a swarming defense. And I think the stats bear it out. You know, you got a great offense and 600 yards for Alabama, and they held West Kentucky to 145 total yards. And if you look at their first downs, Alabama had 25 and West Kentucky 10. So that's because, again, great offense, really, really tough defense. But I think the toughest part, the defense there, that a glaring stat that shows the disparity of Alabama's great offense and a great defense is that Alabama had 9.2 yards per play. Now, that's a lot, 9.2 yards per play, and West Kentucky was held to 2.2 yards per play. So I think the best thing about this was Alabama went out and played a complete game of consistency in offense and explosive offense and swarming defense, and I think that's what we wanted to see.
When you look at that, what was it before we just decided to put the ball on the ground and run the clock out if we still ended up averaging 9.2 yards per play? I want to know what it was with the starters.
Yeah. I mean, and we did that, and we're talking about 9.2 yards play, and we still, just let them play, run the ball maybe in the fourth quarter more than anything. Maybe latter part of the third quarter into the fourth quarter, but I mean, just amazing stats there of what we've looked for an Alabama team. So I was pleased with the performance on the offense, and very pleased, very surprised even with the defense. And I think it bodes well for the rest of the year.
I agree with that. And when you're looking at the bad of this game, not really much you could say. But what would you call the quote-unquote bad of Saturday?
Well, I don't know that I could, for the team-wise, I don't know of a bad that came up. There was a lot of mistakes I can talk about in the third part of it, but I thought the bad overall me was I think it was the worst flow of a game. Not Alabama bad, but I'm talking about I don't think the referees were on top of their game. I don't think the people in charge of West Kentucky's communication system was on top of the bench. I think we got off to a slow start, and I think the game was long. It was a long, long game. So the whole idea we're talking about changing rules to shorten games, this was not one of them that happened. So I think I think it was a really bad. I don't know, just bad performance by the people who on the field. I have to say referees that supposed to keep the game moving. I don't think this was a good moving game.
Yeah, it got off to a rough start when you look at how the game started. I took Addison to the game, and we sat there and we waited and we waited, and it was like, okay, when Deontay Lawson just back to the sideline, then it was, what's going on? Just a constant hurry up and wait, it seemed like, to get the things kicked off, and I think that did throw off the momentum a little bit to start the game, but Bama finally got it rolling. And really, if there's not much bad, there's really not much ugly, but were there any mistakes that you saw through the course of the game for Alabama?
Well, I think the 7 penalties in my mind were mistakes. I think some of those penalties were just mistake penalties. And the one fumble, I think that could have done a better job of securing the football on that. You got to realize you're going to be hit and secure the football. I think that's one thing that I would look at. But basically, the mistakes that I saw are very correctable. They're not like last year's mistakes where it kept happening over and over and over. Like we had one snap that went over his head. We had some players' helmets coming off, and we had 3 new players come in, and maybe got a little off on some cadences and that sort of thing with the offensive line, new people in. We had a guy that played left tackle all fall camp that didn't get to play, and one guy that shifted over for his first time. So those mistakes are all correctable and work on. So I'm not worried about the mistakes.
Yeah, in DC, I would say I'm not sure which fumble you're referring to in the game, but the snap. You guys were at the game, so you didn't hear Coach, the snap that went over his head that we lost that turnover on, Coach said that they were on a different page. The center and the quarterback were not communicating. And he specifically said that led to that turnover. So I don't know if that what's the name kind of got jumpy on the snap or something, and that changed his momentum, or Milroe just wasn't ready, even though it was a high snap. If he had been ready, I don't know what it was, but he did specifically say coming out of halftime that was a communication problem, not a technique problem. And as we know, last year we never knew what was wrong with the snap.
and I agree with that. I was there. It was in my end of the end zone where I was standing. I knew it. I could tell you exactly what happened. As soon as it happened, I did not immediately knee-jerk reaction to this same as last year, because it was not the same as last year. You had a center who was trying to communicate with all the linemen on the play. You had Jalen, who was at that point in time, I think they were having communication issues with the helmet. So he was looking to the side to get the last-minute call. He was just not ready for the snap when the snap came. The snap came at a time where the center knew that he thought he had the right signals to snap it. They weren't communicating correctly. Exactly what the problem was. The ball was high, but it was catchable. Jalen just wasn't ready for it. So I had there was no knee-jerk reaction. Hey, this is the same as last year. I've seen that on message boards. I've seen that on other things. That's completely false. There was nothing like that. It was just a mistake that can be corrected in practice.
And the other part for me, really quick, X, and I toss it back to you, was that I'm not as worried about the penalties either, because if you look at, I think we had, 7 or 8 penalties. 6 of them was in the first part of the first quarter. And I think that I think the whole team and coaching staff rhythm was thrown off when they couldn't communicate. And people say, well, that shouldn't affect the play. Yeah, when you don't get into your set as fast as you usually do, and then you can't adjust as quickly. But just think about this. Guys don't even have to look to the sideline to adjust now with the headset. But when they lost that, offensively and defensively, I think it threw them off. And so I'm not even as worried about the penalties as I would have been normally, because when I went to all of the scrimmages and stuff like that, the penalties were minimum. And so we'll see.
Well, I think the penalty I was talking about, Martin, and I think Xavier can agree with. I don't know if you saw this on the TV, but being live, the 2 penalties I most talk about mistakes were the ones that were called, and I saw about 4 others that weren't called that could have been called, and that was wide receiver issues and blocking, either blocking or holding or blocking behind. I saw Coach Shepard, and I loved it. I saw Coach Shepard get so upset with Jeremy Bernard and Kobe Prentice, and immediately take them out of the game and coach them on the sideline, put somebody else in points where it didn't matter what the next play, whether it was 3rd down or 4th down or whatever, he took them out because they made mistakes on penalties on blocking issues, and so that was the mistakes I was talking about. I agree with you on the other mistakes on the line. I think those are things that just happen because of communications and lack of that. But I mean, I don't know if you were able to see the blocking mistakes on the wide receivers, but there was 2 at least were called. There was about 4 that weren't called that could have been called, in my opinion.
Yeah, and this first game, that's what I'm saying, is I'm not worried about those. I'm not worried about that from a pattern standpoint, because speed of the game and different things like that, they got out of position. I think they underestimated how fast and how quick the other guys would react, and then they were out of position.
Yeah, no doubt. But I love that they were corrected immediately, and it didn't let Kit go on. It was, I mean, he recognized that the coach corrected immediately, and I'm sure they were. In other words, they were being corrected during the game. They didn't wait to film to correct it. He corrected right then, and I like that.
You could see Coach Shepard, if you were at the game, you could see Coach Shepard pull those guys off immediately and be correcting them as they were coming off the field. And I think that's what the DC's getting at, and handle it right then and there and get the next guy in to see if it could be improved with just a change of player or just a correction on the sideline But we're going to go ahead and get to break as we get ready to wrap this show up. But we will come back and we'll talk about Nick Sheridan talking about Jalen Milroe's efficiency, how that is when you look at Boston College last night with Bill O'Brien and the type of quarterback that he has compared to how he was with Jalen in Alabama. And we'll get DC's thoughts on this game against South Florida. We'll catch you on the other side.
Coming up on The Game with Ryan Fowler.
Hey, Roll Tide, this is Ryan Fowler from The Game. We'll be back on Tuesday. We're not going to be laboring on Labor Day. We're going to recap Alabama and Western Kentucky. We'll take your reaction with a great guest lineup, all starting at 2 p.m. Tuesday afternoon, right here on The Game on Tide 100.9, 1230 WTBC, your home of Alabama Crimson Tide Sports.
The longest running sports program in Tuscaloosa. The Game with Ryan Fowler. Weekdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Here's what's trending on the Tuscaloosa thread.
Good Tuesday morning. Strikes are a prominent part of the news today. The Communications Workers of America have withdrawn from mediation with AT&T. That includes workers here in the state of Alabama. Picket lines are already up locally with a nationwide strike not set until October the 19th. Meanwhile, employees of Marriott, Hilton, and Hyatt hotels have gone on strike for higher pay, fair workloads, and pandemic-era rules to be abolished. Each of those chains have hotels in the Tuscaloosa area. Click TuscaloosaThread.com for more local news. Don Hartley, Town Square Media, Tuscaloosa.
Tide 100.9 traffic.
Tuscaloosa traffic now from the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center. If you're traveling eastbound 2059 from Foster's to McFarland, look for an 8-minute drive there. On the westbound side, 8 minutes, Cottondale to 359, and traveling along McFarland Boulevard from Coker to Jack Warner Parkway, that'll take you about 13 minutes.
Round, Fincher and Osmond to the rescue.
I'm Tom Osmond, your jeweler at Fincher and Osmond Jewelers. Not so easy to find on McFarland, between Edgar's and local routes.
Welcome back to the Martin Houston Show, the sound of Bama sports. Your show, your team, on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Welcome back into the Harvest Church 2-minute warning. Harvest Church, where we love God, love people. Let's put the finishing touches on this edition of the Martin Houston Show, powered by Box Eye Care. It's Martin, Xavier, and DC.
DC got some rapid fire questions for you. We heard at the start of the last segment, Nick Sheridan talking about Jalen Milroe's efficiency. What were your thoughts about the way Jalen played on Saturday?
I thought it was a great job. I thought he did probably his best efficiency since I've seen him play as a quarterback. He was comfortable. He was calm. It looked like the offense was made directly for him, and he only missed 2 of his throws, and he was right on the spot. Everybody talking about Ryan Williams, and I say great. Ryan Williams was awesome, but Ryan Williams didn't throw the ball to himself. It was put on the money on both of those plays, and so I have to give Jalen Milroe credit. He can get the ball to his playmakers and knows who they are. And if you look at those 2 Ryan Williams throws, most impressive part about those throws were they were late in progression. That means he went through at least 2 other progressions before he saw that. And I think that shows me his consistency of knowing, learning, and improving. And I think he's going to only get better.
And then when you look real quick at what Bill O'Brien had to do last night, getting the win over Florida State with an athletic quarterback, a running quarterback, a 5'9" quarterback, is it a little crazy to think this is the same guy that wanted Jalen Milroe to switch positions?
Yeah, to me it sounds like a little crazy, and maybe he came to his senses and saw something that he thought that he needed to do to win that game last night. Work with what he had. It's a shame he couldn't do that against when he was here with Jalen Milroe.
All right. And thoughts on the South Florida game? Even though we won the game last year, didn't see Jalen Milroe in this game, didn't have a great performance overall as a team, 17-13. What do you think happens this year?
Well, I think Alabama wins the game handily. I think it's going to be a little bit of revenge in some of these players' minds, like Tyler Booker and Roberts and Milroe, who didn't get to play last year. But the fact is, you got to look at the stats. South Florida's got a good athletic quarterback. He's going to do really well. He's going to have some plays. Can our defense stop him? And I think we can. Last week they played Bethune-Cookman. Bethune-Cookman had 17 first downs. They didn't score, but they had 17 first downs. And I think if Alabama can move the ball that way on this defense, on South Florida's defense, then Alabama's offense is going to be explosive and win the game. I'd look for Alabama to win. Big numbers. My score is prediction is Alabama 52 and South Florida 14.
Wow, that's a little bit of a blowout there. Another 50-point game to start off the DeBoer era. DC, can you let us know where everybody can find you and who is bringing you to us?
Yeah, well, you can find me at DCCapstoneReport.com, DC Capstone Report Facebook page, and then you can find me on Twitter at DavidCott50. As always, I'm brought to you by my sponsors, RollTideBama.com and FreelancePictures.com. And then if you want to see some great pictures from last week's game, check out FreelancePictures.com. I tried to share those on our DC Capstone Report site, but he had some great photos up there if everybody would like to get some. And then also, as always, I'm brought to you by Karen Cottingham Realtor right here in Tuscaloosa with the Williams Group at Keller Williams. For all your real estate needs, you contact Karen at 205-887-4008. Our podcast is going to be delayed a little bit. Yesterday was Labor Day. We took the day off, so the podcast will be up later this afternoon.
Yeah, see, all these people took the day off. Hey, the Martin Houston Show was live and on the air, man. We were here. That's why you need to follow the Martin Houston Show on Facebook.
Well, I couldn't find you. I couldn't find you, Martin, live. I know you were, but I was asleep, so I couldn't find you. I'm not like Pat. At least I knew where you were. I just couldn't find you.
Kind of hard to find with your eyes closed. Hey, DC, what were your biggest takeaways from college football this past weekend?
Well, I think the blowouts. I think I looked around and there were a lot of blowouts, and I think that was good. Offensive production, that was a big takeaway. But then, teams that I thought were going to be really good, like Florida State, or at least the talking heads thought were going to be really good, didn't. And I think that was a big takeaway. Maybe we're going to have a disparity this year in teams that aren't going to be consistently, like a team that went 13-0 last year, maybe not even make the playoffs this year. And I think that's something that's going to be happening throughout the rest of the season. You'll see more of that happening.
Yeah, and real quick, what are your thoughts on Oregon, the darling of everybody's eyes, struggling against Idaho?
Yeah, I noticed that when I saw that score came up. I thought that was a big thing there. I think Oregon has a hard time putting their offense together, and I think a little bit of portal action may not have turned out the way they thought it would either. So I think that's going to be maybe a problem this year. And Oregon's, remember, they're going to have to compete in the Big Ten against some really tough opponents this year.
X.
All right, so that is DC Capstone Report. Always going to be joining us on Tuesday. I'm Xavier Houston. That's Martin Houston. Thank you for tuning in to the Martin Houston Show on this Tuesday edition. We'll be back tomorrow at 6 a.m. to bring it back to you, just like we do each and every day.
Remember this, trust in the Lord always. Lean not your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him, and he will direct your paths. We'll add our thoughts and comments to the conversation on tomorrow. You can get in on the Empowerment Strategy and Solutions hotline at 205-342-9904. That's always open. Also, mark this down. Don't be like Pat. The Martin Houston Show on Facebook is where you can find us. And if you can't find us there when we're on the airways, download that podcast, the Tide 109 podcast. And hey, thanks to all the callers, listeners, viewers, and chatters for being part of the show. We'll be back on tomorrow at the same bat time, same bat channel. Roll Tide, everybody.